New machines, new stress, new venue, round the world, round the cans, and a new finish. In case you hadn't noticed, the season's well underway. You know it's a genuine America's Cup when the talk of legal cases starts. I mean, the battle for the oldest international sporting trophy just wouldn't be the same without some kind of high-level spat, would it? Now, I know some of you will be rolling your eyes back and shaking your heads in frustration. But if nothing else, once again it goes to show how high the stakes are and how much some people care. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to start on a positive note. Teams. If the chatter's true, it looks like we could have 6 challengers this time around, with 2 new ones joining the Brits, the Italians, the French and the Swiss. That would be pretty impressive and hopefully create some interesting racing, at least for the Challenger Selection Series. Of the 2 new teams, a new Czech-American team is backed by Karel Komorek, who currently races his Wallicento V. Along with Chris Welch, they've bought the assets to the American Magic team, including the AC75 Patriot. Former North Sails president Kenny Reed is running the team, which has got a rather long title, American Racing Challenge Team USA, and it's representing Sail Newport. There seems little doubt that the hardware that the team has got is good. The big question is who they get on the team, especially as some of the key members must have moved on. The other team, which is still speculation at this stage, is believed to be an Australian one, with Tom Slingsby on board. If that's the case, this could be very interesting. It's said that they're looking at buying the Kiwi boat from the 2021 Cup in Auckland, which, whilst it's a much older boat, is certainly no slouch. The biggest issue for these teams will be the short runway between now and the next Cup. In fact, so short that it's unlikely that either will be doing the first preliminary regatta in Cagliari next month. On the other hand, this time around you can't build a new boat anyway unless it's to an old boat design, and anyway there's no time to do that. So in that respect there's much less pressure on development in this area. There's a whole bundle of performance data on all the boats as well, so they're well-established datums for pretty much all the teams. But on the other hand, the boats need to be heavily modified with systems to remove their cyclor stations and convert them to all-electric power. Plus there are new foils to develop, so there's still plenty to do. And on that front, the Kiwis are once again the first onto the water with their modified AC75. And what really surprises me is that they're first by such a long way in a Cup cycle that is very short on time. The Kiwis have proved repeatedly how important hours on the water really are, and yet none of the challengers are out there in their big boats yet. I'm particularly surprised at the Italians who've been out on their AC40s but not in the big boat. Having said that, I do actually hear that it's actually due for launch sometime in May. The British team is also a bit of a mystery, especially after the rather public spat between Ainsley and Jim Ratcliffe about who actually owns the boat. I've been asked about this a great deal over the last few weeks, and the truth is that I don't think anyone on the outside really knows. But for what it's worth, my guess would be that it would be unusual for a sponsor to own the boats. But as I say, what do I know? The chatter I heard was that the question as to what the Ineos camp owned raised its head during the Cup in Barcelona, and that Ratcliffe was not happy at all. And if that's the case, it would perhaps explain why we are where we are now. But it seems to me that the risk is that if legal proceedings do go ahead, and irrespective of how likely they are to find on either side's favour, that a writ gets slapped on the boat before we even get to the Cup. Who knows? So in the absence of any news from the team on this, we can only speculate. But it does seem like a disappointing way to restart a campaign that had finished on such a high in Barcelona. A dispute about whether the last 2 Cups and now this one are even legal is also bubbling away in the background. A case has been filed with the New York Supreme Court by former Cup sailor John Sweeney against the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. Sweeney, who's a former Cup sailor and appears to have a great deal of experience and indeed success in the American courts, claims a number of things. But perhaps the most interesting is that he claims that the Cup has been operating without any legal authority under the deed of gift for many years. It's a complex argument that has been triggered by the most recent move to share the responsibility for running the Cup now and in the future by all the competitors. In other words, the formation of the America's Cup Partnership, the ACP. As I say, he sets out a number of issues, and the only thing that's clear is that it's complex. So who knows where it'll all lead, if anywhere. But if nothing else, it's been a long time since we've had a spat of this kind that strikes right at the very heart of the event itself. So unless you like legal speak, it's probably not worth getting bogged down in it right now. But it could become an issue later on. But in very simple terms, what interests me is whether Sweeney succeeds in persuading the courts that he's been damaged by the actions of this Cup mismanagement, and that he's able to prove what he wants as a resolution. Because if he can't, the case will stall. At least that's my very basic understanding of the process. Anyway, for those of you that are on the verge of nodding off, especially those of you who'd like to see a return to displacement monohulls in the Cup, Sweeney has commissioned British designer Julian Everett to wake you up, as he's created what is described as a fully deed-compliant 90-foot waterline monohull class. I bet you're wondering what that might look like. Well, here's a sketch, and there are definitely no foils. Touring is tricky. You travel halfway around the world, and while the teams turn up, the weather fails to show, which is what happened at SailGP in Rio de Janeiro for the fourth event. This was an event that had to be cancelled last year as the fleet had to have rig modifications, so there was every reason to big up Rio this time. But as the circus rolled into town as planned, there were two things missing. The Kiwis, who after their dramatic collision in New Zealand don't yet have a boat and actually don't look likely to have one for some time, and the wind, at least not in any decent quantity. Instead, the light, shifty and unpredictable condition frequently made the racing a painful lottery.
It's 1 o'clock. Hello, Albert. Australia is going down.
I start and finish, so I don't know. So the call my board is not understood.
And yet, when you looked at the leaderboard after day one, it was the Australians that were leading, the Americans in second, and the Swedish Artemis team in third, and only 2 points separating the top three.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tricky day. It was super gusty, and there was boats everywhere, so doing a lot of maneuvers, a lot of pumping, and yeah, it was a tough day, but it's part of the job, so just got to live and learn and take it out there tomorrow and hope it's a bit nicer.
It's horrible. That's the easy way to put it. Yeah, you're under constant stress now, trying to figure out when to sit her in, when to go to H1, when to pop, so it was sort of dominated the conversation on board. But yeah, it's tricky, but same for everyone, and yeah, tough to manage, but we got there in the end.
So if you hadn't witnessed the racing and only seen the results, you would have thought all was normal. But to see the season leaders, the Brits in last, suggested it wasn't normal at all.
I think not too many positives other than we didn't do anything very well. So we know that that isn't how we can sail, and certainly I let the side down a lot today, bad starts, and didn't really get a break. But these things happen in SailGP. There's very much, the fleet is a high standard, and we didn't sail well enough, and we don't deserve to get good results when we sail like that.
The second day may have delivered more breeze, but it was still very shifty and gusty, thanks to the local topography. And to add to team stress, they had the tallest wings on, making the F50 Cats beasts to handle. And some were quite clear what they thought of that.
Really challenging day today. Really uprange for the wings we had and the main foils we had on the boats, and that massive jib. It never felt like anything was right, but hearing back from the coaches and then watching the whole race, and kind of everyone was having those problems. So.
Yet this still wasn't enough to unsettle the return to form from Tom Slingsby and his crew. In fact, far from it, as the Australian team swept the board with 3 straight wins to put them into the finals as favourites. And when they lined up against the Swedes and the Spanish, the Bond's Flying Roos were unstoppable, even though they didn't have it all their own way.
As a sailor, racing under a mountain like that is very, very tough. But, I mean, we've just got such a good team and we gel so well, especially when the conditions are hard. And, yeah, just it all came together today, which is such a sort of satisfying feeling.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the hardest things about today is sailing in conditions like that. And it felt like we needed everyone. And I think Sammy did an amazing job on the handles. And, yeah, it was a bit easier for us out in front, I think. But, yeah, awesome day together.
Each event this season seems to have delivered a shock. This time it was seeing the Brits finishing last after a disastrous weekend.
This weekend's performance really was bad, and I think that we were surprised, maybe not surprised, we expected to be slightly better today. But what I am really proud of is that the team came out fighting today. There was no anger on board. We kept the team together. We had each other's backs. We were doing everything we can to get a good result. We just couldn't get it together. So I think disappointed, but I guess proud of how the team still had each other's back at the end of a difficult weekend.
So the Brazilian gig has resulted in a slight change to the overall season leaderboard, with the Australians gaining a place to take the top spot, the Brits dropping to second, and the Americans remaining in third. Next stop, Bermuda. Moving offshore, the other thing to catch my eye was the Globe 40 race, double-handed multi-leg race around the world in Class 40s. If you've seen our previous features, you'll know that this has been great to watch, with some long legs and close racing. And yet, unlike the higher profile, big budget professional events, this race has been played out pretty much under the radar for 7 months since the start. But now the fleet's completing its lap of the planet, and we have a winner. Ian Lipinski and Antoine Carpentier slipped into Lorient this week to take the overall win.
Depuis, donc ça fait quelques mois qu'en fait on n'a plus le droit à un seul faux pas si on voulait remporter le général. Et donc la pression à chaque fois il fallait gagner, à chaque fois il fallait gagner. Il fallait gagner en arrivant à Sydney, il fallait gagner en arrivant à Valparaiso, il y a eu égalité, il fallait gagner en arrivant à Recife et là, et donc voilà, c'était un peu inespéré. Et voilà, moi c'est du soulagement et beaucoup de pression qui retombe.
C'est comme tu dis, on est des pionniers, quoi. On a fait le tour du monde en SCO. Moi c'est ce que je disais, c'est que la première fois que j'ai navigué sur un classe 40 SCO, je me suis dit oh là là, ça va être compliqué de naviguer dans le grand large avec ça. C'est vrai que c'est un peu engagé comme navigation, mais c'est faisable, hein. On a réussi à faire tout le tour sans avoir d'avarie majeure à bord, quoi. Donc des petits trucs forcément, mais donc une certaine fierté et puis
Jonas Gerkens and Benoit Hansberg, sailing Belgian Ocean Racing, finished second, and again they've been up there throughout the race.
C'était pas nous les favoris qui devaient gagner haut la main. Je pense qu'on a été la bonne surprise d'être aussi proches et les embêter autant, donc c'est plutôt une bonne chose. Après, ça fait des super vainqueurs, hein. C'est toujours la même chose. Les matchs d'anthologie, il y a toujours 2 participants qui sont à un très haut niveau. Je pense qu'on a été à la hauteur de ce point de vue-là, et ça, c'est une satisfaction pour un projet belge. C'est pas dans l'ADN de la Belgique d'avoir des projets de aussi haut niveau, donc c'est plutôt une grosse satisfaction. Mais ça donne quand même l'envie forte de gravir encore une marche.
But what impresses me is the breadth of this modest fleet, from scow boats that are clearly much faster than the older, more conventional pointy bow types, and the range of sailors from full pros to full amateurs. All of them have completed the lap, all of them have enjoyed competition within the fleet, and together it goes to prove that we haven't lost the sport to the Grand Prix top end. Far from it. And finally, the Ocean Race Transatlantic, which starts in New York on the 1st of September, will finish in Lorient. This is going to be an interesting one to watch, as not only is it a stepping stone towards the Ocean Race proper that starts in 2027, but it marks a subtle shift in the gender balance in the crew. For this race, it'll be a 50-50 male-female split. There are practical reasons for this, as teams can provide meaningful race time on the water for women team members, which will help rotate crews come the big race around the world. but it's also a welcome step to redress the gender imbalance in our sport. So far there are 5 teams entered in the transatlantic race, including Francesca Klapčić in the newly reworked 11th Hour Racing, previously Milizia, Boris Herman in the brand new Milizia, and Kojiro Shirishi in the new DMG Mori. As you know, there's a whole heap more going on around the world as the season gets going. We've certainly got plenty coming up, including a look at a team that have their feet in both the America's Cup and SailGP, and a team that I think are going to be making quite an impact this season, the French. In the meantime, I'll let you get back to your own preparations, have fun, and before I go, just one last thing. Please do make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. As I said many times before, it makes a big difference. And we're very close to getting 100,000 subscribers. Help us get there. Have fun, take care, we'll see you next time.